What if Princess Diana could see the future? What if she knew exactly how she would die, who would betray her, and what would happen to her sons? Not through intelligence reports or palace intrigue, but through psychic visions and supernatural insight. For the final decade of her life, Diana consulted astrologers, mediums, and clairvoyants obsessively. She believed in reincarnation, energy healing, and the power of prophecy. And according to the psychics she trusted, Diana didn't just fear her death, she foresaw it with terrifying accuracy. She predicted the car crash. She predicted Charles would marry Camilla. She predicted William's struggles and Harry's rebellion. She even predicted that her own spirit would continue protecting her sons from beyond the grave. This is the investigation into Diana's supernatural world, the psychics who guided her, and the predictions that came true with chilling precision. Did Diana have a gift? Or was she a vulnerable woman manipulated by charlatans who got lucky with their guesses? Let's start with Diana's introduction to the psychic world. It began in the early 1980s, shortly after her marriage to Prince Charles. Diana was lonely, trapped in a loveless marriage, struggling with bulimia and depression. The palace offered no emotional support. The royal family dismissed mental health struggles as weakness. Charles was cold, already rekindling his relationship with Camilla. Diana was 19 years old, desperately unhappy and searching for meaning. That's when she discovered astrology. Her first consultant was Debbie Frank, a London-based astrologer who would become one of Diana's most trusted spiritual advisors for over a decade. Diana contacted Debbie in 1989, asking for a reading. What started as curiosity became a regular practice. Diana would call Debbie before major decisions, before overseas trips, before confrontations with Charles, before public appearances. Debbie would read Diana's astrological charts, interpret planetary movements, and offer guidance based on the stars. And according to Debbie, Diana had an exceptionally sensitive chart. She was a Cancer sun sign, emotional, intuitive, deeply connected to lunar cycles. Her rising sign suggested vulnerability, but also enormous empathy. The stars, Debbie told Diana, had marked her for tragedy, but also for transformation. But astrology was just the beginning. In the early 1990s, Diana discovered Simone Simmons, an energy healer and self-described psychic who would become one of Diana's closest confidants. Simone claims she could channel healing energy, communicate with spirits, and receive prophetic visions. She taught Diana about chakras, auras, and the power of intention. Diana was captivated. She began practicing meditation, crystal healing, and visualization techniques. She wore specific gemstones Simone recommended for protection. She consulted Simone before nearly every major event in her life. Simone later wrote a book, Diana, The Secret Years, describing their friendship and the psychic sessions they shared. According to Simone, Diana had natural psychic abilities herself. She experienced déjà vu constantly. She had premonitory dreams that came true. She could sense people's emotions and intentions intuitively. Simone claims she helped Diana develop these abilities, teaching her to trust her instincts and interpret the spiritual messages she received. But the most influential psychic in Diana's life was Rita Rogers, a spiritualist medium who claimed she could communicate with the dead. Diana began consulting Rita in 1995, introduced by a friend who swore by Rita's abilities. Rita conducted seances for Diana, claiming to contact her deceased grandmother, Cynthia Spencer, and even her father, Earl Spencer, who died in 1992. Diana desperately wanted to believe her loved ones were still watching over her. And Rita provided that comfort, delivering messages allegedly from beyond that told Diana she was loved, protected, and destined for important work. Rita also made predictions, and this is where the story becomes eerie. According to Rita's later accounts, she warned Diana repeatedly about danger. She saw visions of a car, of water, of darkness. She told Diana that someone close to her would betray her. She predicted that Diana's marriage to Charles would end in divorce, which happened in August 1996. She predicted that Charles would eventually marry Camilla, which happened in 2005. She predicted that Diana would find love again, but that it would be brief and tragic. And most chillingly, she predicted that her death would come young in a sudden, violent way. Diana took these predictions seriously. She told friends that Rita had warned her to be careful, to avoid certain situations, to trust her intuition. But she didn't know how to prevent what the psychics foresaw. How do you avoid fate? If the universe has determined your death, can free will change it? Diana struggled with these questions. She was simultaneously terrified by the predictions and fatalistic about them. She wrote the letter to Paul Burrell predicting her death in a car crash. She told multiple people she believed she wouldn't live to see 50. She seemed to accept that her time was limited. But here's the question that haunts researchers. Were the psychics genuinely seeing Diana's future, or were they feeding her paranoia? Diana was already anxious about palace conspiracies against her. She believed the royal family wanted her gone. She'd been betrayed by staff who sold stories to tabloids. She was followed constantly by paparazzi. In this environment, a psychic warning her about danger wasn't prophetic, it was obvious. Anyone could have predicted Diana faced risks. The specificity, car crash, sudden death, betrayal, might have been educated guesses based on Diana's lifestyle, not supernatural visions.
Let's examine the predictions that came true versus those that didn't. Rita Rogers claims she predicted Diana's death, but according to Diana's friends, Rita's warnings were vague. Danger involving a car, water nearby, darkness. These could apply to countless scenarios. Rita never said, "You will die on August 31st, 1997 in a Paris tunnel in a Mercedes." The predictions only seem accurate in retrospect because we know what happened. This is called confirmation bias. We remember the hits and forget the misses. Rita also predicted Diana would remarry and have a daughter. That didn't happen. She predicted Diana would live to see William become king. That didn't happen. She predicted Diana would write a best-selling memoir exposing the royals. That didn't happen. The successful predictions, divorce, Charles marrying Camilla, finding new love, were either likely outcomes based on known circumstances or events that occurred after Diana's death when Rita could claim she'd predicted them without Diana being alive to contradict her. Simone Simmons made similar claims. She said she warned Diana about negative energy surrounding her in the summer of 1997. She claimed she had visions of Diana in danger but couldn't interpret them clearly enough to save her. After Diana's death, Simone said the visions made sense. They'd been showing Diana's impending crash. But again, the specificity came only after the event. Before Diana's death, Simone's warnings were generic enough to apply to any danger. Debbie Frank, the astrologer, has been more measured. She's acknowledged that Diana's astrological chart showed challenging planetary alignments in summer 1997. Saturn was in a difficult position relative to Diana's sun sign. Pluto was transitioning through her 8th house, the house of death and transformation in astrology. But Debbie has also said that these alignments don't predict literal death necessarily. They could indicate any major transformation: divorce, career change, spiritual awakening. Interpreting them as predicting physical death is only possible after the fact. So were the psychics frauds, exploiting a vulnerable woman? Not necessarily. Many people who work in spiritual fields genuinely believe in their abilities. They may not be consciously lying, but rather interpreting ambiguous feelings and intuitions as supernatural visions. Diana wanted to believe. She needed guidance and comfort that the palace wouldn't provide. The psychics filled that void. Whether their predictions were genuine or coincidental, they gave Diana something she desperately craved: the sense that someone understood her struggles and could help her navigate the future. But there's another possibility worth exploring. Diana herself had genuine intuition. Not supernatural powers, but the kind of heightened awareness that comes from trauma and survival instinct. Diana had been betrayed repeatedly. She'd learned to read people, to sense danger, to trust her gut feelings. When she said she feared for her life, it wasn't psychic vision, it was pattern recognition. She'd seen how the establishment destroyed anyone who threatened them. She understood she was vulnerable. Her predictions about her own death weren't prophecy, they were logical conclusions based on her circumstances. Consider the letter she wrote to Paul Burrell in October 1996. This particular phase in my life is the most dangerous. Someone is planning an accident in my car, brake failure, and serious head injury. This is often cited as proof Diana foresaw her death. But read it carefully. She doesn't say, "I will die in a car crash." She says someone is planning it. This is paranoia, not prophecy. She believed people were plotting against her. Car accidents are a common assassination method. The CIA had used them. MI6 had used them. Diana was smart enough to identify how she might be killed if someone wanted her dead. That's not psychic, it's strategic thinking. The psychics Diana consulted may have simply validated and amplified her existing fears. When Rita said, "I see danger involving a car," Diana's subconscious mind, already worried about assassination, interpreted this as confirmation. The psychics became echo chambers for Diana's anxieties rather than sources of new information. But what about the predictions regarding her sons? This is where the psychic narrative becomes more interesting. According to Simone Simmons, Diana had visions about William and Harry's futures. She allegedly told Simone that William would struggle with the burden of being heir, but would ultimately find happiness with a strong woman who understood duty. That's eerily accurate. William struggled immensely with royal responsibility, especially after Diana's death, but found stability with Catherine Middleton, who came from a normal family but adapted to royal life successfully. Diana also allegedly predicted Harry would rebel against the institution and marry someone completely unexpected who would cause scandal. She told friends she worried Harry would struggle more than William because he wasn't the heir and would feel less important. Again, this seems prophetic given Harry's marriage to Meghan Markle and their subsequent exit from royal duties.
But are these predictions supernatural or simply a mother's insight? Diana knew her sons intimately. She understood their personalities, their struggles, their needs. She knew William was serious and dutiful like his father. She knew Harry was rebellious and emotional like her. Predicting their general life trajectories didn't require psychic powers. It required being a perceptive parent. Diana's predictions about her sons were educated guesses based on their characters, not supernatural visions. There's one prediction, however, that gives even skeptics pause. Multiple psychics who knew Diana, including Rita Rogers, claim that Diana told them she would continue protecting William and Harry after her death, not metaphorically, literally. She believed her spirit would watch over them from beyond. And according to both William and Harry in interviews years later, they felt their mother's presence at crucial moments in their lives. Harry has spoken publicly about feeling Diana's guidance when he met Meghan. He said he felt his mother had somehow brought Meghan into his life. William said he felt Diana's presence on his wedding day and when his children were born. Are these genuine spiritual experiences, or are they grief-stricken sons finding comfort in believing their mother is still with them? Psychologists would argue the latter, that William and Harry's feelings of Diana's presence are psychological projections, their minds creating comfort during emotional moments. But those who believe in the supernatural would argue Diana genuinely watches over her sons from another realm, fulfilling the prediction she made before death. There's no way to prove either interpretation. What's undeniable is that Diana believed in the possibility of spiritual continuation. She consulted mediums regularly. She wanted to believe consciousness survived death, and she explicitly told people she would protect her sons no matter what, even from beyond the grave. Let's talk about the darker side of Diana's psychic obsession. Some of her friends worried she was being exploited. Psychics charged significant fees for their services. Rita Rogers, Simone Simmons, and others made comfortable livings from Diana's consultations. After Diana's death, several wrote books capitalizing on their association with her. Were they genuinely helping Diana, or were they financially benefiting from a vulnerable woman's desperate need for guidance? The evidence suggests a mix. Some of Diana's psychic consultants seem to have genuinely cared about Diana. Debbie Frank has spoken respectfully about Diana and hasn't sensationalized their relationship. But others, particularly those who published tell-all books immediately after Diana's death, seem more interested in profit than in honoring her memory. Diana's relationship with psychics also isolated her from more conventional support. Instead of seeking therapy from licensed professionals who could have helped her with her depression and trauma, she relied on spiritual advisors who told her what she wanted to hear. This isn't to dismiss spirituality. Many people find genuine comfort and faith in psychic practices. But for someone as troubled as Diana, combining spiritual guidance with actual psychiatric care might have been more beneficial. The palace was horrified by Diana's psychic consultations. They saw it as embarrassing, undignified, evidence of mental instability.
When stories emerged that Diana was consulting astrologers and mediums, the establishment used it to paint her as irrational and unfit. This is tragically ironic because the royal family itself has a long history with supernatural beliefs. Queen Elizabeth II consulted astrologers. Prince Charles practices homeopathy and organic farming based on spiritual principles. But Diana's spiritual practices were dismissed as crazy, while the family's were considered eccentric to tradition. Let's examine one final aspect of Diana's psychic world, her belief in reincarnation. According to Simone Simmons, Diana believed she'd lived previous lives and would be reincarnated after death. She told Simone she felt a deep connection to certain historical periods and places, ancient Egypt, Victorian England, and pre-revolutionary France. She believed these feelings were memories from past lives bleeding through into her current consciousness. Diana also believed she and Charles had been connected in previous lives, which explained their troubled relationship in this one. She thought they had karmic debt to resolve, lessons to learn from each other. This belief helped her make sense of why she'd married someone so fundamentally incompatible with her. It was destiny, karma, a predetermined spiritual lesson. Whether you believe in reincarnation or not, this framework gave Diana meaning and purpose. Her suffering wasn't random. It was part of a larger spiritual journey. Her death wouldn't be the end. She would continue existing in another form. For someone facing enormous pain and isolation, these beliefs provided comfort and hope. Today, nearly 30 decades after Diana's death, her psychic predictions remain controversial. Believers point to the accurate forecasts, her death, Charles marrying Camilla, and her son's paths, as proof she had genuine supernatural insight. Skeptics argue the predictions were vague, the accuracy exaggerated, the whole phenomenon explainable through psychology and coincidence.
The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in between. Diana didn't have magical powers, but she had extraordinary intuition, emotional intelligence, and pattern recognition abilities honed by years of navigating a hostile environment. She combined these natural abilities with spiritual practices that gave her comfort and framework for understanding her experiences. The psychics she consulted ranged from genuine believers to opportunistic exploiters. Some predictions came true through luck and probability. Others were accurate because Diana understood her circumstances well enough to forecast likely outcomes. What remains is the tragic irony. Diana spent years consulting psychics about her future, learning she would die young and violently. But all that foreknowledge didn't save her. She couldn't prevent what she'd predicted. On August 31st, 1997, despite warnings from multiple psychics, despite her own intuitions, despite the letter to Paul Burrell, Diana died in a Paris tunnel exactly as she'd feared. Did she know it was coming in those final moments? Did she recognize the fulfillment of the prophecy as the car spun out of control? We'll never know. But Diana's belief in psychic predictions, whether justified or not, defined her final years and shaped how she understood her own mortality. What do you believe? Did Princess Diana have genuine psychic abilities and supernatural insight into her future? Or was she a vulnerable woman manipulated by fortune tellers who got lucky with their guesses? And regardless of whether the predictions were real, did they help Diana or harm her by feeding her paranoia? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. This is one of the most fascinating aspects of Diana's hidden life, and every perspective adds to our understanding. If this investigation opened your eyes to Diana's spiritual world, hit that like button and share it with anyone interested in the supernatural, prophecy, and the thin line between intuition and magic. Subscribe to Crown Conspiracies for more investigations into the mysteries they tried to hide. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next psychic revelation.